Hello guys, and welcome back. And if you are new here, then welcome and congratulations on finding this video where we are going to build and deploy this beautiful React personal portfolio website. Now I've seen a couple of React portfolio websites and I'm going to tell you this is by far going to be the best in terms of design and features. Before I even walk you through the finished project, let me quickly tell you some of the things that you are going to learn in this React tutorial. Now, this tutorial is going to be very beginner friendly, and that means we are going to create this React portfolio website totally from scratch. Okay, so if you don't know anything about React, or if you know very little about React, then this is going to be the perfect video for you. And now let me tell you what you will be learning in this tutorial. By the end of this video, you will know how to build a React app from scratch. Okay, so we are going to build everything from scratch. You will know how to use React hooks, especially the useState hook. You're not going to go crazy on hooks, so we are only going to use the useState hook. You know how to use the React icons library. Okay, so we are going to use some icons on our website, so you know how to use React icons. You know how to build a clean, modern, and responsive design with CSS3. You know how to implement multiple contact options on your website, including WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and email. Okay, so people can actually message you directly on your website, and I'm going to show you how to do that with email.js and some other options that we are going to explore as I walk you through the finished project. You know how to use SwiperJS in React apps. You are also going to learn how to deploy your website. Okay, so we are going to build this website, and then after that we are going to upload it on the internet, make it available for everyone around the world. Okay, so this and many more things that you are going to learn in this video. Now let me walk you through the finished project. Now this is exactly what we are going to build in this project. Okay, so here on the header section we have our name and some call to action buttons. Okay, so we can actually click, or people can actually click to download your CV. As you can see here, they can download your CV and they can scroll down to contact you. Okay, so here they have several options which I'm going to walk you through once we get to the contact section. So back here on the header section, you can see they have an option to your social media. Let me go back. All right, we have our image here and we have this scroll down thing here. Okay, so we can click to actually, and it is going to take us to the bottom of the page, right? And notice we don't have the regular or the usual nav bar. Okay, instead we have this floating nav bar. Let me actually refresh so that you see it well. Okay, so our page loads and then our nav bar comes in. Okay, our floating nav comes in. All right, so we have home, about, and all that. Okay, so we can actually click and it is going to take us to the different sections of the page, right? And we are going to explore all that. All right, so here let's go to the about section. We have our image here, we have some cards, and we have this button, okay, which is going to take us to the contact section. Let's go back up. We have the experience section as well with this cool card hover effect, and notice the background texture as well. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that. And if you don't want that, that is cool. This portfolio website looks crazy cool already. All right, here on the services section we have this cards as well. We have our portfolio section with the different portfolio projects that we've worked on. So here people have the option to go to your GitHub and see the projects, or they can see a live demo of the project, right? And that is cool as well. Now let's scroll down and we have this testimonials section. Okay, So we are going to create everything from scratch and then use SwiperJS for the slice. Now let's scroll down and we have this section, that is the contact section. So this is going to be the fun part. Okay, so here people have the option to click this and your email is going to be populated as you see here. So they can just go ahead and then type in their message. They also have an option to message you on Facebook Messenger. So let's click. And right here, people can directly message you on Facebook. Okay, so people can directly message you on Facebook. And they also have an option to message you on WhatsApp. Okay, so here when I click this, it is going to open my WhatsApp. I have WhatsApp installed on this laptop, so it's going to open WhatsApp. People visiting your website can directly send you a message on WhatsApp, right? Great. Now they can also submit a direct message from this form, okay, and you're going to receive that in your email. So right here I'm going to enter my name, an email, and then a message, right? And I'm going to send this message and this submitted. Okay, so let me check my email real quick. I'm going to check my email right here. Okay, so we have the message. So this is the name, the email, and then the message I entered, right? So you can allow people to send you direct message from the form on your website. And down here we have our footer with some social handles. Now let's see how this website is going to look on different devices. Okay, so let's see how it's going to look on tablets and mobile phones. All right, so this is how our website is going to look on tablets. Let's still download our CV, as you can see. Everything is looking great. We have a testimonial section right here. We have a contact section too, okay? And we can still use the floating navigation for the different sections of the page. Now let's see how it's going to look on phones. So this is exactly how the website is going to look on mobile phones, okay? You can see it is very responsive. Still have a hover effect. There's some portfolios. There's our portfolio section. We have the testimonials section here. And our contact section. Okay, so everything is looking great. And here on mobile, people can also message you with the various contact options that we have. All right, so this is what we are going to build in this tutorial, and we have a lot to do, so let's get started. Now, as I said earlier, we will be deploying our website, okay? And that means after building the website, we will be uploading the website files to a server, okay, and make it available for everyone around the world. So for that, we are going to use Hostinger. Now, Hostinger is by far the best hosting provider right now, and that is because they are very reliable and affordable. As you can see here, for $3.50 per month, you are going to have your website hosted. So here they have different options, they have different plans that you can select. I prefer this plan, okay? I prefer this package, as I'm going to be able to host 100 websites. They give me 100 gigabytes of SSD storage. They give me a free email, okay? So you can get maybe hello@yourwebsite.com, and they are going to give you a free SSL as well, okay? And SSL is the lock that you usually have on your website, okay, making your website secure. They give you a free domain name as well, which usually costs with other hosting providers. So hosting actually gives you a lot of free stuff. So that is what I am going to use, and I have my affiliate link in the description. So if you appreciate this tutorial and you want to help me out, you can use that, and I may get a commission when you make a purchase. Okay, and you're also going to get a discount. All right, so here I'm going to select the package that I want, and Hostinger is very affordable, so I'm going to go with this. That is the 48 months. I'm going to enter my email, and I'm going to use PayPal. Okay, so let me go straight ahead and submit or make my payment. Let's proceed and claim our domain. Okay, so they are giving us a free domain. Let's proceed to claim it. So your domain name is going to be your website name. All right, so the domain name for this, I'm going to say, okay, so this is going to be my domain name. Let me check to see if it is available, and it is available. Okay, so I'm going to claim it, and we are going to create our website ourselves. So we are going to skip this step. All right, so now that we are done purchasing our hosting and claiming our domain name, let's proceed to building the website. To start off, we are going to use npm to create our React application, and npm comes with Node, so you should come to this website, that is nodejs.org, and then install any of these. Okay, any of these versions should do it. So you just download it and walk through the installation process, which is very, very simple. Also, I'm going to use VSCode for this project. Okay, so that's the text editor I'm going to use. So you come here to this website and you can download VSCode. All right, so those are the two things you should have before we proceed with this tutorial. I have my assets folder here with all the assets, all the images that we are going to use throughout this project, and the PDF as well. Okay, so we have the PDF for our CV. And I'm going to leave a link to this assets, the source code, and then a live demo of the website. Okay, and that is going to be for my Patreons. So if you want these extras, consider becoming a Patreon. But of course, I'm going to walk you through step by step how to create this so you can do everything by yourself. All right, now I have a messy desktop. Okay, and I don't want to show you that, so I'm going to use my terminal. Okay, so I'm going to use git bash. Let me make this bigger. Okay, and I'm going to cd to my desktop, and here I'm going to create a React project. Okay, so I'm going to do npx create React app, and I'm going to call this React portfolio website 1. Okay, so that is the name I'm going to call the folder, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, and this may take a while. All right, so everything is done. Okay, and let's see. As you can see, I named my project or the folder React portfolio website 1. So let me cd into that. Okay, so I'm going to go into, actually let me just open that with VS Code. Okay, so code and then the name of the project or the folder. Okay, so React portfolio website 1. So I'm going to open that with VS Code, and our project is here. Great. Now I'm going to delete all the files inside our source folder. Okay, we are going to do everything from scratch, as I said earlier. So I'm going to delete everything in the source folder. Okay, and here in the public folder as well, I'm going to delete everything. So you can see we don't have anything in the source and in the public folder, right? So in the public folder, we should have an HTML, and that is where our app is going to be rendered. So I'm going to create an HTML file, and with emit I'm going to do exclamation tab. Okay, so the extensions I'm using is let me show you the extensions that I'm going to use. I'm using emit. Emit actually comes with VS Code. So if you're using VS Code, you don't have to install that. But we are going to use another extension called ES7 React Readers React Native Snippets. Okay, so this extension we are going to use as well for the JSX. Okay, so you should install that as well. All right, so let me go back to my index, and I'm going to title this the ultimate React personal portfolio website. I don't have to do anything here but to have a div. Okay, and this way our app is going to be rendered. Okay, so everything is going to be rendered here. You can name this anything you want, but it's usually called root. Now in the source folder, I'm going to create another folder. I'm going to call this assets, and that's going to be the images that we are going to use. Okay, so in this assets, I'm going to bring in all the images. Okay, all the assets that we're going to use. So I'm going to drag and drop them in. Okay, so we have that, and in the source folder I'm going to have the index.js. So this is the only file with a .js extension. The rest is going to be .jsx. That is because I'm going to be using emit for shortcuts, and you're going to understand that once we start coding. I'm going to have index.css as well, and this is going to have our variables, browser prefix, and all that. So that is going to be my let's see, where is it? This should come in here. This should be in the source. Okay, it should be a subline of this. Okay, so let's see. Here in the index.js file, I'm going to import React DOM from React DOM. At first, you have to import React as well. Okay, so we would import React from React, but these days you don't have to do that. Okay, in newer versions of React, you don't have to import React. Okay, so here we have to render something. Okay, we have to render something in our index. Okay, in this roots div. So right here I'm going to render my app component, which I've not created yet. Inside, let's get that. So document.query selector, and we are going to get our root. Okay, that is this div. We're going to get this and then render this component. So now let's create our app component. Let's create our app component. So I'm going to create a new file called app.jsx, and I'm naming it JSX because I'm going to use emit for shortcuts. Okay, if it is a JS extension, using emit is going to be difficult. Let's create a functional component with RAFCE. Let's go back to the index.js and import the components we just created. Okay, so we are going to import app from the app component. Now we are going to start our server, so I'm going to do npm start, and we should have our app running in our default browser. Index.css. Okay, so to make sure everything is linked, let me get the body, and I'm going to give that a background of black and text color, come on. Let me give that a color of white. Okay, I don't have the variables here, so all right, so we still have our app, as you can see here. to keep everything simple, I'm going to make each section of the page a component. Okay, so we are going to have the header component here. We are going to have this floating nav as a component as well. We are going to have the about component. We are going to have the experience component, and on and on and on. Okay, so we are going to create a folder here in the source folder. We're going to call this components, and this is going to hold the different components that we have. Okay, so each component is also going to be a folder. So the first one, let me call this about. Okay, so we are going to have the about component, and inside the about component folder, we are going to have the JSX file, about.jsx. And for each component, we are going to have a separate or a CSS file for it. Okay, so we are not going to write everything in one CSS file. Each component is going to have its own CSS file. Okay, so for the about component, we are going to have about.css. So that is for the about. Now I'm going to create another one, and this is going to be contact. I'm just doing this alphabetically. Okay, so we are going to have the contact component. So contact.jsx. You know what, let me go to the about. Let me go into the about and do rafce. Let's make sure we import the CSS file as well, about.css. Here in the contacts, I'm going to do rafce again and import the CSS file for that. So contact.css, which we haven't created. So I'm going to create that, contact.css. The next component is going to be the experience component. Okay, so the experience section, experience.jsx. It should have its own CSS as well. Okay, so experience.css. Let's do rafce in the experience component and import our CSS file. And the last component we are going to create is the testimonials. Okay, so testimonials. Let's create the JSX. Let's create its CSS. Okay, so testimonials.css. Now I'm going to do rafce here as well and import the testimonials.css. All right, so we have that. Now I'm going to close all this. Okay, all the components and all the files that we just created. Using Control W, I'm going to close them all. And inside my app components, I'm going to import them. Actually, I'm going to wrap this inside a React fragment. Okay, so here in the app components, in the root app component, I'm going to import the different components that we just created. Okay, so here are all the components that we've created. I'm going to import them all, and this is going to be in the order we want our application. Okay, so we are going to have the header components. We are going to have the nav, the floating nav. Okay, so the nav components. We are going to have the about, the experience, and all that. Okay, so it's going to be in that order. So first we are going to have the header, and we should make sure that is imported. Header from components, header, and then the header.jsx. Okay, and there's a problem here. Okay, so ESLint is actually having a problem with the path. Okay, there's a conflict here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is close this whole project and rename the project again. Okay, so I'm going to close that, rename it, and then reload it with VSCode. All right, so I just reopened the project. So here I'm going to run npm start again. All right, so everything is working as expected. Now let's see. Let me save again, and you can see now we have no problem. Okay, now let's proceed to import the other components. So from the header section, we are going to have the nav component as well. Okay, so that is going to come from, let me go into the components folder, nav, import the nav component. So we should have our nav. Let's get the about. From the about, we are going to have, let's see, so we have the header, the nav, we have the about, we are going to have the experience, the services, the portfolio, testimonial. So in that order. Okay, so we are going to have the experience, services, portfolio. We are going to have the testimonials, the contact, and now I'm going to import them all. Okay, so from the about, we are going to have the experience, and that is going to be components experience, and then let's get the component itself. Let me duplicate this. So from the components, we are going to have the services. All right, okay, so we should have all the components here. Okay, so everything is working perfectly. Now we are going to get to the fun stuff shortly. Okay, so we are going to soon get to work on the various sections or the various components that we just created. But before that, let's go into index CSS. Okay, and I'm going to delete the styles we have here. So we are going to have our CSS variables. Our we are going to change our fonts as well. Okay, so as you can see here, this font doesn't look really good, so we are going to change that. We are going to use Google Fonts and all that. Okay, we are going to have some general CSS classes here as well before we get to work on the various sections or the various components that we just created. Okay, so right here, first I'm going to zero out the margin and patterns that we have. Okay, so we have some margins here, as you can see. Each browser has some default styles, okay, for the different elements that we are going to have. Okay, so here I'm going to set everything, that is the margin, to 0. Every element is going to have a pattern of 0. So this here means every element on the web page, okay, should have these styles that we are given. We are going to give them a border of 0 as well and an outline of 0. Now I'm going to set the box sizing to border box, a list style of none, so that every every list item is going to the bullets for every list item is going to be removed. And I'm going to set the text decoration for every anchor tag. Okay, every link is going to have a text decoration of none, that is removing the underlines for every link. Now, as I said earlier, we are going to have some CSS variables. Okay, we are going to use CSS variables throughout the project, and that is going to help us prevent repeating ourselves. Okay, so we are going to have some variables here, and it is even good to have some variables so that we can easily customize our page, okay, our website. Okay, so these are going to be the CSS variables that we are going to use. These are going to be root variables, and that means we can use them anywhere in this project. So to declare a CSS variable, you're going to do 2 hyphens. The name of the variable, I'm going to call this color BG. Okay, so this is going to be the background color for our body, right? And the value for this is going to be 1F38. Okay, so that is the value for this variable. So I'm just going to copy this. Okay, so these are the colors that we are going to use. These are basically the colors that we are going to use throughout this project. So we have color BG variant. Okay, so it is going to be let me show you real quick. Okay, so in this finished project, this background is going to without the texture is going to be the color BG. There is going to be the color BG variant. Then we are going to have primary, which is going to be this light blue, and more colors. Okay, so we are going to use CSS variables, and as I said, the good thing about CSS variables is we can easily customize our website. Okay, so it helps us with easy customization. So if maybe I don't want this primary color, I can just come into the project, change that variable or the value for that variable, and the whole color is going to change. Okay, the whole color for or any element using that variable is going to be changed. Okay, and we are going to understand that once we get to creating the elements in the components. Okay, so these are the variables that we are going to use. These are the colors that we are going to use. All right, now I'm going to have a couple of or 3 more variables here. I'm going to call this container with LG. Okay, and this is going to be 75%, and this is going to be the width of a container class. Okay, that we are going to create or that we are going to wrap around the different elements. Okay, so this container class is going to be a general class, and it's going to be in almost all the sections or almost all the components that we are going to create, and we are going to understand this once we start creating elements in the different components. I'm going to have another variable called container width. This is going to be 86%, and I'm going to have another one, container width, and this is going to be the small. Okay, so SM, and that is going to be 90%. Okay, so the width of the container is going to change depending on the screen size. Okay, so we are going to use media queries, obviously. Now let's move on, and then I'm going to give that a scroll behavior of smooth. Okay, so that we can smoothly scroll to the various sections of the page. We are not going to need a scroll bar, okay, for this website, so I'm going to display that now. I'm going to remove the scroll bar, and now let's move on to the body. So I'm going to target the body, and here I'm going to change the font that we have. Okay, so for that we are going to go to Google Fonts to get some fonts there, and the font I'm going to use is Poppins. Okay, so let me actually remove this so that I show you from scratch. So let's search Poppins, and this is the font we are going to use. So let's click that, and right here we are going to select the light. Okay, so that is the 300 font weight, the regular, which is 400, the medium 500, and then the semi bold. Okay, so that is it. Now we are going to use the CSS, so let's copy this and import it in our CSS. Okay, I'm going to have this at the top, save, come back, copy this as the font family. Okay, so that's going to be the font family. Now notice we still have the font. Now if I change that to the Poppins, you can see the fonts are now different. Okay, so that is the Poppins font we are going to use throughout the project. Now I'm going to close this. All right, so from there I'm going to give the background the variable BG. Okay, so the color BG, and that is how you use CSS variables. on the different properties of your elements. And the color, okay, so the text color for every text is going to be color white, and that is also here. As you can see, that is FFF, and the variable is color white. Okay, now the line height is going to be 1.7. so let's check that out, and we have this. Okay, now I'm going to add the background texture. Okay, so I'm going to give a background image. Let's go into our source folder, into our assets, and I'm going to get an image called bg texture, and it is a png file. Okay, so let me show you. Where is it? Bg texture. Okay, it is a very tiny image, okay, that I have in here. All right, so that is going to give us the background texture, and we have that. All right, so now let's proceed from the body. We are going to have some general styles, as I said earlier. Okay, so let me leave a comment here. Now we are going to have the general container class. Okay, so that is going to have a width of the variable we set up top, that is container width LG. On different devices, the width is going to change. Okay, so we are going to write media query for that, but for now the width is going to be the LG. Okay, and we are going to give that a margin of 0 auto, okay, to position it in the middle horizontally. All right, so that is for the general class container, the general container class. Now all H1s, H2s, H3s, H4s, and H5s are going to have a font weight of 500. Okay, they are all going to have that style. Now let me get the H1s. The H1s are going to have a font size of 2.5 rem. Now I'm going to target this section. Okay, so almost all the components are going to be, they are going to be wrapped in a section. Okay, in a section tag. Okay, so every section tag is going to have a margin top of 8 rem. Okay, so that we have some white space around the different sections or the different components. Now every section also is going to have an H2, okay, which is going to be a direct child of the section tag. Okay, so we are going to have an H2 and an H5. Okay, so let me show you in the finished project real quick. So as you can see in this about section, you can see we have an H1, sorry, we have an H2 and an H5. Okay, same here in the experience section. All right, so that is what we are doing here, and they are going to have, or they are going to be text aligned to the center, and they are going to have a color of color lights. Okay, and we have that color light here, okay, which is an RGBA, white with some transparency. Now I'm going to get the H2 and then change that color to the color primary. So that is going to have the color primary, and also let me give it a margin bottom of 3 rem. All right, so we have that. Now I'm going to have a general class of text light. Okay, so for some elements I'm just going to add this class, and it's going to change the color to color light. Now every anchor tag is going to have a color primary, and they are going to have a transition of all 400 milliseconds is. All right, you know what, I'm actually going to use this same transition a lot, so let me come up here and make that a variable. Okay, so I'm going to call this transition, that is going to be this. Okay, all 400 milliseconds is. So here I'm going to use that transition variable I just created. All right, so let's move on from that, and every anchor tag is going to have a hover effect as well. Okay, so on hover the color is going to change to color white. Now I'm going to have a btn class. And this is boring, this looks boring, but we need to have these classes, okay, these general classes, so that we can have an easy time working with or working in the various components. Okay, so every btn tag, and that is going to be for the different buttons that we are going to have. Every btn class is going to have a width of maximum content, so it's going to fit exactly its content, right? I'm going to display inline block and give it a color of color primary. Now I'm going to give them a padding of 0.75 rem for the top and bottom, and then 1.2 rem for the left and right. Let me give them a border radius of 0.4 rem and a cursor. Okay, the cursor should be pointer. Now I'm going to give them a border of 1 pixel solid color primary, and they are going to have a hover effect as well. So let me give them a transition, okay, so that it smoothens the hover or the change. Okay, so right here, as I said, I'm going to give it a hover effect. So on hover, they are going to have a background of color white and a color of color bg. That is let's see, this should be var. Now border color is going to change here to transparent. Okay, so it's going to change from color primary to transparent. All right, now we are going to have another class for the buttons. Okay, some buttons are going to have another btn primary class, and for those, they are going to have a background of color primary and a text color of color bg. Okay, giving them a dark text color, and every image is going to be displayed block. Every image on this website is going to be displayed block with a width of 100%, and object fit is going to be cover. Okay, and that is all for our general classes. This is all for our general classes. Okay, now we are going to have some media queries so that we make this responsive. So we're actually going to have two media queries. Okay, the first one is going to be for tablets. So let me leave a comment here, and this is going to be for medium devices, that's tablets. So at media screen and maximum width here, I'm going to do 1204. Well, I'm sorry, 1024 pixels. So here, what I want to do is to get the container class, that is the general container class, and change the width. As I said, I'm going to change the width here to the container width MD for medium, and that is I think 86%. Okay, so on tablets, the container class is going to be is going to have a width of 86%. Okay, I'm going to get the section tag as well and give it a margin top of 6 rem. All right, so that is all. I'm going to just duplicate this for the small devices, that is for mobile phones, and here is going to be 600 pixels. Okay, and we are going to change this to SM for small, and I'm going to get the H2. Okay, and they are going to have a margin bottom of 2 rem. Okay, so this is going to be a margin bottom. All right, so that is all for the smaller devices media queries. Okay, and that is all for this index css file, and I'm actually going to leave this file, that is the index css. I'm actually going to leave it so that we can make reference to some of the classes and then the styles that we have here, but this app JSX is going to be closed. Okay, and now let's proceed to work on the components. Okay, let's proceed to work on the different sections that we are going to have, starting with the header section. Okay, so let's go into our header JSX. All right, so here I'm actually going to remove this, and I'm going to use the header tag here. Okay, so this is an HTML5 semantic tag. All right, and I'm going to wrap everything inside a div with a class of container. That is the general container class that I was talking about. This class right here, okay, that we styled. So that is the general container class we are going to use here, and we are going to have another class of header underscore container. Okay, and this is going to be specific to this header component, okay, or this header section. And this conversion or this style of naming classes is called BEM, okay, and we are going to use that a lot in this tutorial. All right, so let me hit enter, and let's see, we are going to have an h5, and that is going to say hello, I am. And below that we are going to have an h1, and that is going to have our name, that is Hajia Bintu. Below that as well, we are going to have an h5 with a class of text light. And remember, we had that class here as well. Let me quickly show you. Text light, or is it? Okay, so that is going to make it gray, okay, using this variable right here. All right, so we have that. That is going to say full stack developer. Okay, so below that we are going to have some call to action buttons. Okay, the two call to action buttons, let me show you. We're going to have this download CV button and then this let's talk button as well. So to simplify things, I'm actually going to create I'm going to have that in a separate component. Okay, so I'm going to create a component for that, and I'm going to call that CTA.jsx. okay, so call to action.jss, and I'm going to do RAFCE here. All right, so in here let's give this a class of CTA, and we are going to have our two buttons. These are actually going to be links, and the first one is going to say download. Why can't I type today? Download CV. That is the first one, and the second one is going to say contact, okay, or let's talk, and that is going to take us to the contact section, okay, or the contact component. And with this we are going to give the contact section an ID of contact, okay, so that we can just click on this and it will take us to that section. Okay, so to download the CV we should import the PDF, okay, that is a resume, the PDF that we have here. We should import that here. So I'm going to call that let me import the CV from, let's go back into our, let's go back one more time into our assets and get the CV. Okay, so it is called cv.pdf, and we are going to have that here. Okay, so and for it to be downloadable we are going to add the download attributes. Okay, and that is all for this section. Let's see what we have, and it is not here, and that is because we've not imported it in the header JSX. Okay, so here we are going to import CTA from CTA. Okay, and let's make sure we are using it here. So we are going to do CTA and click. This should be a self-closing tag. Let's see, and we have the two buttons. Okay, so we can actually click this to download the CV. All right, now remember we styled some, we had some some BTN classes. Okay, so BTN and then BTN primary, we are going to add those classes here. Okay, so the first one is going to have a class, so a class name of BTN. Okay, so that is going to be the download CV, And the second one is going to have a class name of btn and then the btn primary class. Okay, so we should have the two buttons. Now let's go back and go into our header. So we can now close the CTA component. Now looking at the finished project, we need our image, these socials, and then this scroll down link. Okay, so those are the three things that we are going to have. Let's first have the image. Okay, so let's see, that's going to be, let me give that a class of me, and we are going to have our image. Okay, so up here I'm going to import that image. Let me go back into our assets and then get the me dot, I think, png. Okay, so I'm going to use that image here. All right, let's see whether we have it, and we have the image. Okay, so we have our image. Now we are going to have the scroll down link as well down here. So I'm going to have a link, and that is going to take us to the contact section. Let me actually give this a class name of scroll underscore down. Okay, and it is going to say scroll down. And the last thing we are going to have here is the socials. Okay, so I'm actually going to put that in a new component, or I'm going to create a new component for that. So let's call this header socials .jsx, and I'm going to do RAFCE for a React functional a React function. Let me give this a class of header underscore socials. Okay, and inside of it we are going to have our links. The first one is going to go to linkedin.com, and let's give it a target blank. Okay, so that it opens in a new tab. Okay, so target underscore blank. Let me duplicate this twice. The second one is going to go to GitHub, and the third one is going to go to Dribble. Okay, dribble.com. Now we are going to use icons for the socials. As you can see in the finished project, these are icons. So for that we are going to use React icons. Okay, so let's go to this URL. Let's open our terminal. Actually, let me open a new terminal here. Paste what I just copied and then hit enter. Okay, and it is going to install React icons right here. Now let's search the first icon that we are going to use, that is LinkedIn, and I'm going to use this. Okay, so I'm just going to click on it, and it is going to copy the name to my clipboard, and here I'm going to import that. Okay, from the React icons library, React icons slash the initials. Okay, so this is BS. Okay, and that is going to be imported, and I'm going to use that here. So I'm going to paste. That is going to be a self-closing tag. Now let's see, and nothing is showing because we are not importing this component. Okay, the component here, we're exporting it, we should import it in the header. Okay, so here I'm going to import the component we just created, that is header socials, from header socials. Okay, and I'm going to use that here. That's going to be a self-closing tag as well. Come on, save, and we should have our icon. Okay, so that is the LinkedIn icon. The next icon is going to be I think GitHub. So which one should we use? I'm going to use this. So let's go back to our header socials, duplicate this, change this, and make this FA. Now I'm going to paste this here as a self-closing tag. The next one, let's see whether we have that, and we have it. Okay, so the next one is going to be dribble. So let's search the dribble icon, and I'm going to use this one. Okay, let me duplicate this, paste what I just copied, and this is going to be FI. Okay, as you can see here. All right, let me use this in here as a self-closing tag, and that is all for the header socials component. So I'm going to close that and save this file. Okay, so we have all three icons. Now let's go ahead into our header CSS and style this whole header component. Now our whole header section is inside a header tag, right? And let's give that a height of 100 viewport height, a pattern top of 7 rem, and an overflow of hidden. Okay, now let's get the header container class, and let's text align that to the center. Give that a height of 100% and position this relative. All right, now let's see. That's what we have. Now we are going to style the CTA, that is the call to action buttons. Okay, let's go ahead and style the call to action buttons, and remember we gave that a class of CTA, so let's give that a margin top of 2.5 rem to push it down a little bit. Okay, so that is pushed down. Now I'm going to display them flex, okay, so that I can have some space between them. So I'm going to display flex and then give them, display them flex and then give them a gap, okay, to have the space between them. A gap of 1 rem should be good, or let's do 1.2 rem, or even 1 rem is okay. All right, now it is here to the left, so I'm going to justify content to the center. Okay, so we have that. Now let's get the socials, okay, or you know what, let's see, yeah, let's get the socials and then put that here. Okay, so let me copy this comment, paste it here, change this to header socials. Let me actually make it socials, or header socials. Okay, so we give that a class of header __ so shells. I'm going to display that flex. Okay, yeah, then the flex direction is going to be column. Now I'm going to align items to the center and give a space between them, a gap of 1 or 0.8 rem. I'm going to position that absolute, and it's going to be 0 from the left and 3 rem from the bottom. Now let's see what we have. And we have it. Okay, now the reason this is styled already with the primary color and then on hover we are getting this white is because we have some styles for the links. Okay, and on hover we change them to white. Okay, that is why it's already styled. Now let me minimize this terminal, and let's proceed. Okay, so I want to have that line, this line that we have here in the finished project, and I'm going to use the after pseudo element of the header socials. Okay, so I'm going to get the header socials and use the after pseudo element here. Okay, so the content is going to be nothing, the width is going to be 1 pixel, the height is going to be 2 rem, and the background is going to be color primary. Okay, now let's see, and we have that. Now let's move on to the image. Okay, now we are done with the socials. Let's move on to the image. It is looking horrible and cut off, so let's move on to that. We gave that a class of me. Actually, let me just remove this and target the me, and we are going to give that a background color primary. That is the div holding or containing the image. Okay, we are going to give that a background of. So let me close this up so that we see everything side by side. All right, so a background of color primary. Let's give it a width of 22 rem, a height of 30 rem, a position of absolute, and it's going to be 50% from the left. Okay, so here I'm going to calculate 50% and subtract half the width. Okay, and it's going to put it right in the middle. Or if you want, you can just do 50% and then transform and then translate it. You can do transform and translate on the x-axis. Okay, negative 50%. It's going to do the same thing, but you know, it's cool to make things short. Okay, let's push it down from the buttons. Okay, so I'm going to give it a margin top of 4 rem and a border radius of 12 rem for the top left, 12 rem for the top right, 0 for the bottom right, and a 0 for the bottom left. Okay, so we have that. Now you know what, the background, I'm going to make that a linear gradient. Okay, so a linear gradient, come on, linear gradient, and it's going to be the primary color to a transparent. Okay, so we have that. Overflow to hidden, and padding, I'm going to give it a padding of 5 rem for the top to push the image down, 1.5 rem all around. Okay, save, and this is what we have. All right, now the next thing is to position this scroll down link that we have. Okay, so let's position that well. Let me copy this. So we give that a class of scroll underscore down. I'm going to position this absolute. It's going to be negative 2.3 rem, 2.3 rem from the right. From the bottom is going to be 5 rem. Okay, so we have that. Now I'm going to rotate it. Okay, so I'm going to transform and rotate 90 degrees. Great. Now I'm going to change the font weight to 200 to make it lighter, and change the font size to 0.9 rem. Okay, now there's actually not a 200 font weight because we imported, I think, from 300. Okay, so let me just remove that 200 and make that 300. See, there's no difference. All right, so that's all for this header component. Okay, or the header section. Now before we even move on to the next section, let's make this responsive on smaller devices. Okay, so we are going to write the media queries for this. Now let me go back to this index CSS and copy. I'm going to copy this. Okay, don't want to waste time typing that out. So this is going to be for tablet, copy, paste, and we are going to have another for small devices. Okay, and that is going to be for from 600 pixels and below. All right, so let's start with tablets. All right, so this is going to be very simple, but before that, let's make this smaller. Okay, so that we see the change. So here I could just say the container should have a background of red, just so we can see um the breakpoints. Okay, so right here is the breakpoint. So anything below this is going to have that style. Okay, the style that we are going to give. All right, so here on tablets, we want to get this the header tag and then change the height to 68 viewport height. Okay, and that is what we are going to do here. And this is looking weird, but let's forget that for now. And here in the here on mobile phones, I'm going to get the header and change the height back to 100 viewport height. This should be height. Okay, I'm going to get the header socials and they scroll down and display them none. So they are not going to be available on mobile phones. All right, to really see what is happening, I'm going to show you the render on mobile phones. Okay, so this is how our website is going to look on mobile phones. This is how it is going to look on mobile phones. Now let's see on tablets, and this is exactly how it's going to look. Okay, right, now let me close this. So now the next component that we are going to handle or tackle is the nav component. Okay, our floating nav that we have here. That is the next component that we are going to work on. So let's move on to that. I'm going to close the header. Okay, the header components, and we are going to get onto the nav. Okay, so let me open that, and I'm actually going to put this in a nav tag. Okay, that is also an HTML5 semantic tag, and we are going to have some links. Okay, so the first one is going to take us to the top of the page, and we are going to have an icon inside of this, and that is going to be a home icon. So we already have React icons installed in our project, so let's go back to this website and search home, and you can use any of these icons, but I'm going to use this one. Okay, so I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to import that in this component. Okay, so I'm going to import from React icons and then AI. Okay, as you see here, now I'm going to use that here as a self-closing tag, save, and we should have that. Okay, so we have that icon, and we are going to have the about. So let me duplicate this 5 times. We are going to have the about, the experience, the projects, and then the contact. Okay, so this is going to go to the about, the experience, the services, or you can make this go to the portfolio section if you want, and it's going to go to the services, and then this will go to the contact section of the page. Okay, so we should have 5 icons right here, but we are going to change them. The second one is going to be about, so let's say about or user. Okay, so about me, let's see what we used here in the project. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to use this one. Let me duplicate this, replace that. This is going to be AI. Okay, and I'm going to paste this in. Okay, so this user. Now let's check that, and we have that. Okay, so the next one is going to be experience. So for experience, let me just search book, just trying to find the same exact icon. Okay, I'm going to use this one. Okay, so I'm going to copy and then paste that here. Let me duplicate this, replace that, and this is going to be BI. save, and we should have our book. Okay, so we have that. And the next one is going to be, let's see, this services. So let me search service, and right here, okay, so this is the icon I'm going to use. Let me click on that, come back here, duplicate this, replace this. It's going to be RI, and I'm going to paste this here. Okay, save, and we should have yeah, so we should have it. Okay, so the last one is going to be contact, and really you can use any icon that you want. Okay, you can use any icons that you want. Let me actually search message. Let's see what we used here, and I'm going to use this icon. Replace this as well. There's going to be BI. Oh no, let's duplicate this. All right, save. So right here we have all the icons. Okay, and we can click them to get them to the different sections. Actually, that's not happening because we have to give them an ID. Okay, so the sections that we've assigned to the links, okay, the sections that we want these links to go should have the ID that corresponds to the href. Okay, so let's go into the about. Let's start with the about, and I'm actually going to change this to a section tag. Okay, and this section tag should have an ID of about, and on click of this icon it should bring us down to the about section. Okay, actually let me go into my index CSS and then give every section a height of 100 viewport height. Okay, now our about should have 100 viewport height, which is good. So now we can visualize what we are doing here. So I'm going to go into all the components and make the changes real quick. So this is going to have an ID of contact. The next is going to be, let me actually just close this up, and the about as well. The next is going to be the experience. That is going to be a section, and it is going to have an ID of experience. We are going to have the footer, but that is not going to be, that is not going to have the styles that we are given right now. This is going to have a section tag as well and an ID of portfolio. Actually, that is not needed, but you know, let's just keep everything real here. The services is going to have an ID as well of services, and the testimonials, we don't need to add that here, but let's just do it. So an ID of testimonials, we may remove it when we actually get to the testimonials. Okay, but for now let's just keep that. Okay, so now I can click and it is going to take me to the various sections. Okay, and lastly the contacts. Great. All right, so now let's style this. Okay, so let's go into our CSS, that is our Nav CSS, and give our floating navigation some styling. Now I want to see everything as I code. Okay, so I'm going to put this side by side so that we can see what's happening here. Okay, so we have that inside a nav tag. We are going to give that a background. Actually, let me do an RGBA of 0, 0, 0, and then 0.3. Okay, so black with some transparency. Let's give that a width of maximum content, so it's going to fit exactly the width of its content. We are going to display block, which it is already, and give it a padding of 0.7 rem for the top and bottom and 1.7 for the left and right. Let's change the z index to 2. I'm going to position this fixed, so it's going to be fixed on the page no matter how far we scroll. It is going to be 50% from the left. Let's transform, then translate on the x-axis, negative 50%, and from the bottom it is going to be 2 rem. Now I'm going to display this flex and give it a gap. Okay, so we are going to have some gap between the icons or the A's or the anchor tags. Give it a border radius of 3 rem, and I'm going to have a backdrop filter. Okay, and this is going to be a blur of 15 pixels. Now I'm going to target the links. Okay, the links inside of it, I'm going to target that. So now then the links inside of that is going to have a background of transparent, padding 1 rem. Okay, I think 1 rem is too much. Let's do 0. Padding of 0.9 rem, border radius of 50%, display flex, give it a color of color light, and a font size of 1.1 rem. All right, so we have that. I'm going to have a hover effect here, and on hover I want the background to have an RGBA, and this is just going to be a darker color. Okay, let me actually make this 2 or 3. 3 should be good. Now I'm going to have an active class. Okay, so one of these should be active. This should be active by default. That is the home. So I'm going to have an active class, and the background is going to be the color BG. Okay, here is the variable we have in the index CSS, and the color itself, that is the text color, is going to be color white. So let's go back and then give this a class name of active, just so we can see that. Okay, so by default we are going to have that as the active nav. Okay, all right, so we have this styled. Okay, now we want to be able to change the active class and put it on what we click. Okay, so to do that we are going to use useState. Okay, so React hooks, and we are going to use the useState hook. Okay, so here we are going to import useState from React. So the useState value is going to be active nav, and the update function here is going to be set active nav, and by default is going to be this. Okay, and that is going to bring us to the top of the page. All right, so I'm actually going to remove this. So if the active nav is equal to this, then we want to give it the active class. Okay, if not, then we want to give it nothing. So that is going to be no class. Okay, so right now this is the value, so we have it. Okay, so if I should change this or remove this, we won't have the active class on it. Okay, so that is how we are going to do it. But what if we click on the about? Okay, so on click of the about, I want to set the state value. Okay, so set active nav, I'm going to set that to about. I'm going to do the same thing I did here. Okay, so here I'm going to copy this class, and I'm going to say If it is about, then I want to give it the active class. If not, then it should have no class. Okay, let's try this out. Let's go back, and if we click this, we should have the active class. Okay, but what if we click back on the home page? We want to reset this, so I'm actually going to copy this, copy and then paste it here. Okay, and I'm going to make this the hash. Okay, so it's going to reset the state value to this hash that we have. All right, so let's try that. So I have the active class on this, but if I click this, I'm going to have it on the home. Okay, so we can toggle between these two. All right, so I'm going to do this same thing for the rest of the links. Okay, so I'm going to copy and then paste that, and this is going to be the experience. Okay, you're going to do the same thing here, paste. This is going to be services, and this is going to be contact. Okay, and I hope this makes sense. All right, so let's try this out, and everything works as expected. All right, so that is all for this floating nav component. Now the next component is going to be the about component, so I'm just going to close these two out, and then let's go to the about. Okay, so the about component, that is what we are going to work on. So looking at the finished project here in the about section, we are going to have two direct div inside the section tag. We are going to have this about me, and then this content here. Okay, which is going to have the cars and all these. So let's go back to our code, and we are going to have our h1. Let's see, we're going to have our h5 and then the h2 first before the actual content. Okay, so we are going to have our h5, and it's going to say get to know, and the h2 is going to say about me. From there, we are going to have the container, and then the about underscore container, and that's going to be specific to the about section or the about component here. All right, so from there we are going to have two divs, the about underscore me, and this is going to have the image, and another div. This is going to be about underscore content. So this is going to have the image, and let's put that image inside a div. Okay, with a class of about underscore me image. So let's get the image. Let's go back into our assets. You know what, we have to import it. Okay, so I'm going to import the image from the assets, and this is me about.jpg. Okay, so let me show you that image real quick. Okay, so this image is what I'm importing here, so we are going to use that here, and the alt, you can see that should be good. So that is our image. In here in the about contents, we are going to have the cards. So about underscore cards. Each card is going to be an article tag with a class of about card. Okay, singular. And each card is going to have an icon, an h5, and then I think a small tag. Okay, so let's have the icons. You know what, first let's have the h5. Okay, so this is going to be experience, and the small tag 3 plus years working experience. Now we are going to have the icon. Okay, so let's go back to this. I don't know the exact name of the icon, so Let me just search our word. Let me search our word instead. Let's see what we used here. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so I'm going to use that. So I'm going to come up here and import what we just copied. That is the icon from React Icons. Okay, so down here we are going to use that icon as a self-closing tag, and let's give this a class. Okay, we are going to give this a class of about icon. You can do about card icon, it doesn't really matter here. So I'm just going to duplicate this 5 times, or 2 times, sorry. Let's see what we have. And we have the cards. Okay, now I'm going to search the other icons. So the next icon is going to be users, or the clients that I've worked with. So I'm just going to use this. Come up here, import that. Is fi. Use that down here. The next one, actually this is going to be clients. Okay, 300 plus clients worldwide. This next one is going to be the projects that I've worked on, the number of projects, 80 plus completed projects. So let me see, I'm going to search library or folder. I'm going to use this, copy, come up here, duplicate this, and it's going to be VSC. Okay, VSC, save, come back, let's see what we have. And we let's see, in this showed, did I not change that? All right, so I should change that. Save, and we have all 3 cards. Okay, now the last thing we are going to have is this paragraph and then the button. Okay, so below the cards we are going to have a paragraph. Let's just do lorem 30, and below that we are going to have the button, and that is going to take us to the contact section of the page. Let's give that a class of btn and then btn primary, and that is all for the JSX. That is all for the JSX. Okay, now let's head on to the CSS and then give this some styling. Now let's get the about container class, and I'm going to display grade. The grade template columns is going to be 35% for the left and then 50 for the right. The rest is going to be for the gap. Okay, so the gap is going to be 15%. Right, so I'm going to get the about me. That is the image side. Okay, that is where is it? That is this side. Okay, so that is going to be the about me, and I'm going to give that a width of 100% and an aspect ratio of 1:1. Okay, so it's going to, the height is always going to match the width, so they're all always going to be the same value. I'm going to give that a border radius of 2 rem and a background. This is going to be a linear gradient, so 45 degrees, transparent, color primary, and then back to transparent. I'm going to display this grid just so I can place the image itself into the center. Okay, so I'm going to place items to the center, and it is going to put the image right in the middle. All right, so now let's target the image div itself. Okay, so about me and then the image. I'm going to give that a border radius of 2 rem, give it an overflow of heading, and I'm going to transform and rotate it 10 degrees. Now let's see what we have. And I have a problem. Okay, I'm transforming and rotating. Okay, so I have that. Now I want to be, let me actually show you real quick. In the finished project, you see the image fixes itself on hover. Okay, so on hover, the rotation is going to be 0 degrees. Okay, so let's do that. So let's get the main image, and on hover, you're going to set the transform rotate to 0 degrees. And that is happening too fast, so we are going to add a transition of the variable transition. Save, and we have a smoother hover effect. All right, now let's move on to the right side. Okay, I'm going to get the about cards. Okay, I'm going to display that grid. The grid template columns here is going to be repeat 3 times 1 fr, and the gap here I'm going to make that 1.5 rem. Now I'm going to get the individual cards, and remember we gave them a class of about card, and I'm going to give them a background bg variant. Okay, here is a variable in the index css. Right here we have the bg variant, so that is what we are using here. Let's give them a border of 1 pixel solid transparent, a border radius of 1 rem. I'm going to give them a padding of 2 rem, and text align everything to the center. All right, so we have that. Now on hover, I want to have some styles. Okay, I want to have some change on hover. So the background first is going to be transparent. The border color is going to be color primary variant, and that is another color inside the index css. All right, so we have that. Now I want that to be smooth, so I'm going to add a transition of the variable transition. Okay, so we have a smoother hover effect. I want the cursor to be default. Now I'm going to target the icons. Okay, so about cars, or we actually give them a class of about icon. Let me change the color for those to be color primary. Font size 1.4 rem, and I'm going to give them a margin bottom of 1 rem. Now let me get the h5s, about card, and then the h5. The font size here is going to be 0.9 rem. Let me make that 9.5 rem. Now I'm going to get the small tag, so about card and then a small tag. Give them a font size of 0.7 rem and a text color of color light. Save, and we have this. So now I'm going to get the paragraph. Okay, the p. So about content, and then the direct p inside of it. I'm going to give that a margin of 2 rem for the top, 0 for the left and right, and then 2.6 for the bottom. Okay, let me give color of color light. All right, so that is for the about. Okay, that is for the desktop. Now let's have the media queries. Okay, so actually let me go into the nav so that I can just copy the media queries, or do we not have any media queries there? Let me go into the header. Okay, so the header CSS to have the media queries. Okay, so I'm going to copy and then paste. All right, so we are going to have two media queries here, and we are going to start with the tablet version. Okay, so on tablets, I want to get the about container, and then the grid template columns here is going to be 1FR. Let me actually put this side by side so that we see what's going on. Okay, so this is what we have. Let me make it a little smaller. Okay, so the container is going to have a grid template columns of that, and then I'm going to zero the gap. Now let me get the about me and make the rate of that to be 50%. Okay, give that a margin of 2 rem auto, and then 4 rem for the bottom. All right, so we have that. I'm going to get the p, that is the contents p, this content, and then the p is going to have a margin 1 rem for the top, 0 for the left and right, and then 1.5 for the bottom. All right, now let's move on to mobile phones. So on mobile, I want to get the about me and change the rate to 65%. The margin is going to be, actually that is 0 auto already, right? Okay, so it's not. So the margin here is going to be 0 auto, and then 3 rem for the bottom. Now I'm going to get the cars, about cards, and the grid templates columns here is going to be 1FR, 1FR. The gap is going to be 1 rem. Now I'm going to get the about content and text align that to the center. Okay, now let me get a p. Okay, so about content, and then the p tag, the margin is going to be 1.5 rem. So 1.5 rem for the top and bottom, and then 0 for the left and right. Okay, so this is what we have. And ignore this experience here, that is the experience section. We are going to get to that in a little bit, but this is what we have so far. So let's see how this actually looks on mobile and on tablets. Okay, so this is how it looks on mobile, and this is how it looks on tablets. Okay, now let's go back, and then let's continue with the next section, or the next component, which is going to be the experience. Okay, so let's move on to that. So I'm going to close this about, and then move into the experience. All right, so here we are going to have our age 5, and that is going to say what skills I have, or the skills I have. It doesn't really matter here. Okay, so we are going to have an age 2, and below that we are going to have the container class. Okay, so inside here we are going to have two divs. Okay, two direct div. The first one is going to have a class of experience underscore front end. You can leave the class, it doesn't really matter. We are not going to target the class, but you know, just for you to see what's going on. And then backend. Okay, so from the finished project, okay, so these are the two cards. We have the front end and then the back end, right? So inside this we are going to have an h3 for the heading, and then we are going to have these. Okay, so each one of these is going to be wrapped inside an article tag. In every article tag, we are going to have this check icon and h5 and then this small tag. Okay, so let's go on and then do that. And this is going to say front end development, and below that we are going to have a div with a class of experience content. And even in the backend, we are going to have this same class. Okay, so that we have only one style for both of them. All right, so as I said, we are going to wrap each of them inside an article tag, and actually we are going to give that a class of experience details. So in here we are going to have the icon, which we are going to import. So let's say check, let's see, so this is what I'm going to use. Okay, so I'm going to import that from React icons. So let's bring that in here. This is going to be a self-closing tag. Let's save and let's see what we have. So we have that. Okay, so we're going to have the h4, that is going to have the programming language or the scale, and then a small tag, okay, for the experience. So this is going to be experienced. Let's actually give this a class of text light. Okay, we can actually leave this and then style that inside the CSS, but let's just give it this class. Okay, so that we have it grade already. Okay, so that is one article. Let me actually copy this, duplicate it I think 5 times. So from HTML we are going to have CSS, and that is going to be intermediate. From there we are going to have JavaScript. Let's say experience, let's leave it. We are going to have Bootstrap, experienced, Tailwind, experienced. You can do Vue, Angular, what's anything. Okay, it depends on what you know. So if you know all of them, you can write them, you can add them to this list. And this is also going to be experienced. Okay, so React is going to be experienced. And now let's save and see what we have. And we have this. Okay, so I'm just going to copy everything in here and then paste it inside the backend. Okay, we are just only going to make some small changes, that is the content itself. So the heading here is going to be backend development. So here we are going to have, let me actually leave a link, a comment here. So we are going to have Node.js, okay, MongoDB, PHP, intermediate, MySQL, can do basic if you want, Python, and we are only going to have 5 for the backend. So let's save, let's check that out, and we have the backend. All right, so now that we are done with the markup or the JSX, let's move on to style this. Okay, so let's go to the CSS. So we are going to get the experience container. Okay, and then display that grid. The grid template columns is going to be 1FR, 1FR. So 50% on the left and then 50 on the right. And then give them a gap of 2 rem. Let's see what we have. And we have this. Now I'm going to get the direct divs inside this container. Okay, so I'm going to get the front end, the back end, and then the front end divs right here. Okay, so those are the direct divs inside of this container. I'm going to give them a background of color BG variant, and then the padding 2.4 rem for the top, and then 5 rem, 2.4 rem for the top and bottom, and then 5 rem for the left and right. Border radius of 2 rem, border of 1 pixel solid. Let's actually do transparent here. Let's save and see what we have, and we have this. All right, now I'm going to get the H3s. Okay, so the headings that we have here, I'm going to get that. Actually, before that, I'm going to have a hover effect for the two cards. Okay, so on hover, I want to change the background to transparent. The border color is going to be color primary variant, and it's going to have a cursor of default. Right now, let's go ahead. Let's actually check that out, and we have this. Okay, that is actually too sharp, so I'm going to add a transition of all. Actually, let's use the variable transition. That should make it smoother. Let's go back and then start the headings. Okay, so I'm going to get the direct divs and then the H3 inside of it. I'm going to text align that to the center, give that a margin bottom of 2 rem, and the color of color primary. Save. Let's see what we have. Okay, so we have them. Now let's target the content. Okay, so let's target this content, so the experience content, and we are going to display them grid. Okay, so the display is going to be grid. The grid template columns is going to be 1FR 1FR. Save. Let's see what we have. Two rem. Okay, so that we have some space between them, which is great. It is looking great now. I'm going to get each of the articles or each of the article tags, and remember we gave them a class of experience details. Okay, I'm going to display them flex and then give them a gap of 1 rem. Let's see, you know what, I'm going to put this inside a div tag. Okay, I'm going to do that for all of them. So I'm going to copy this, put it inside a div tag. All right, save, go back, and we have this. Okay, so that is for the details. Now I want to, you can see the icons are not really where it's supposed to be. Okay, so let's target the icons, and remember we gave them a class of experience details icon. Okay, so I'm going to push that down with margin top of 6 pixels, and then a color, I'm going to make the color primary. Save. I guess I did not give that a class. Oh, okay, so let me target all of these. Let me get all of them, and I'm going to add that class real quick. The class name of experience details icon. Save. Oh, I guess I changed this as well. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this. save, and we should have our experiences, okay, just like in the finished project. All right, so that is for the experience. Now this doesn't look really good on smaller devices, so that is what we are going to do. Let's make this responsive. Let me actually go back into one of these. So I'm going to get this, come back to the experiences, and then paste that in. So on tablets, I'm going to get the experience container class. The grid template columns here is going to be 1FR. Now I'm going to get the experience container and then the direct divs inside of it, okay, which are these two. So I'm going to get them, and then the width here is going to be 80%. The padding is going to be 2 rem, and the margin is going to be 0 auto. Save, and we have this. All right, now let's see. Let me get the experience content, and the pattern here is going to be 1 rem. So that is for the tablets. Now let's go to the mobile phones, and the experience container class is going to have a gap of 1 rem on mobile phones. This is looking pretty weird. Yo, what is wrong here? That is because I gave our section a height, okay, so we should remove that. That is the height I gave you. We should remove that. All right, so that fixes it. All right, so here I'm going to get the container again, and then the direct divs inside of it. The width here is going to be 100%, and the padding is going to be 2 rem, 1 rem. Okay, so 2 rem for the top and bottom, and then 1 rem for the left and then the right. And I think I have a problem with my container viewport. Oh, this should be SM. All right, now let's see how it looks on actual phones, and this is exactly how it's going to look on phones. All right, let's see how it is going to look on tablets, and it looks great. Okay, so now let's move on to the next component, and that is going to be the services component. Okay, so let's close these files and move on to the services component. Now this is going to be just like the experience component. Okay, so here we are going to have our H5, what I offer, an H2, and then we are going to have our container class. Okay, so services container. So inside here we are going to have 3 cards. Each is going to be an article tag with a class of service. So inside each of the cards we are going to have a div with a class of service head, and that is going to have an H3, and this is going to be UI UX design, and we are going to have an unadded list, a UL with a class of service list. Okay, service underscore list, and each LI is going to have a check as we have here in the finished project. Okay, so we are going to have this check, and then I think there's going to be a paragraph, okay, a p tag. So let's see, let's actually search a check. Let's use this one, okay. Copy that, and I'm going to import it here. React icons. Let me actually give this a class, okay. So a class of service list icon, and we are going to have the paragraph. Let's do lorem 8. That is even too much. Save. Let's see what we have. All right, so we have this. Great. Now I'm just going to duplicate this li a few times. Let's do 6 times. Save. Let's see what we have. Okay, so that's not bad. Actually, I'm just going to make this 5, and then okay, so that is our first card. I'm just going to copy this whole thing. That is the article tag. Duplicate it twice. Okay, we are going to have 3 cards, as you see here in the finished project. We are going to have 3 cards. So the second one is going to be web development. Okay, so this is going to be end of web development. So let's go up, change this to web development. Okay, just going to increase the list here by 1, and the next one here is going to be content creation. Okay, that is another service. So end of content creation, and this is good. Okay, so that is all for the markup. Okay, that is all for the JSX. Now let's go to the style sheet, that is the CSS, and give this some styling. Yeah, I'm going to get the services container class and then display to grade. The grade template columns is going to be repeat 3 times 1fr. Let me give them a gap. Let me leave a gap between them. A gap of 3 rem should be good. Okay, so we have that. Now let's target each service, that is each article tag, with a class of service. Let's give them a background of color BG variant. Okay, border radius of 0 for the top left, 0 for the top right, 2 rem for the bottom. So we have that, as you can see here. All right, so the border is going to be 1 pixels solid, and then primary. The height is going to be content fit or fit content, and I'm going to have a hover effect. Okay, so the transition here, we are going to use the variable transition. Okay, so this is what we have. Pretty ugly, but we are going to work on that. As I said, we are going to have a transition, a hover effect. So the background is going to be transparent. The border color is going to be color primary variant, and then the cursor is going to be default. Okay, so we have that hover effect. Now I'm going to get the head. Okay, so the service underscore head. Let's give that a background of color primary. Give it a padding of 2 rem, a border radius 0, 2 rem, 2 rem, and a box shadow, okay, of 0 on the x-axis, 2 rem on the y-axis, 1 rem for the blur, RGBA 0, 0, 0, and then 0.1. Okay, so black with 10% for 90% transparency, really. All right, so this is what we have. Still pretty ugly, but let's proceed and get the h3 inside the service head. Okay, so let's get the h3, and we are going to change the color to color BG. Font size is going to be 1 rem, and we are going to text align to the center. Okay, so we have that. Now let's target the contents, and then, or the li, sorry, the unadded list. So we give that a class of service list. We are going to give that a padding of 2 rem. Okay, so it is looking pretty good already. Now I'm going to target the li. Okay, so the li inside the UL is going to be displayed flex. Let me give this a gap of 1 rem and a margin bottom of 0.8 rem. Save. Let's see what we have. This is what we have. Now let me target the icon. Okay, the icon is looking pretty weird. So service lists icon, I think that's the class we gave it, as you can see here. So we are going to change the color to color primary and a margin top of 2 pixels. Okay, to push it down a little bit. I'm going to get a P. Okay, so service list and then the P. The font size is going to be 0.9 rem, and this is what we have. And this is not bad. All right, now let's have the media queries. Okay, this doesn't look really good on smaller devices, so let me just go back here and copy this again, come down, let me close the about. All right, so let's see, what do we want to do here in the on tablets? So on tablets, we want to get a service container, and the grid templates columns here is going to be 1FR 1FR, and give it a gap of 2 rem. Okay, so on tablets, this is what we are going to have. Now let me get the service, that's the article with a class of service, and the height here is going to be auto. Okay, so we have this. Now let's go on mobile and let's give that some style as well. So I'm going to get the service container, and then the grid templates column here is going to be 1FR. The gap is going to be 1.5 rem, and that is all we have to do here. Okay, now let's see how it is actually going to look on real devices. So you can see the services section is looking great. And this is how it's going to look on mobile. So that is for the services. And now let's move on to the portfolio component or the portfolio section. So I'm going to close these two and then go into the portfolio. Let's have our H5, our H2, and below that we are going to have our container class. Okay, and portfolio underscore container. Now in here, our portfolio items are going to be, or each of them is going to be inside an article tag. let's give this a class of portfolio item. And then inside of it, we are first going to have our image. So there's going to be a div with a class of portfolio item image. Below that, we are going to have the title. This is just going to be an h3. And below that, we are going to have our call to action buttons. Okay, so we are going to have two links. The first one going to lead to the GitHub of the project, and then the second one going to the live demo of the project. Okay, so this is just going to be a link, and it is going to go to github.com/your project. Okay, so you go to your project on GitHub, you copy the URL, and then you paste that here. So this is just going to say GitHub. Let's duplicate this. Actually, let's give it a class btn. Okay, let's give it a btn class. This is also going to have a class of btn and then the btn primary class, and this is going to go to the live demo of the project. For now, let's just do we are going to use the images we are going to use is going to be from Dribble. Okay, so the images we are going to use is going to be from this user on Dribble. Okay, actually I don't think you can even use this in production. Okay, so this is just to show you all these are just cool images I just wanted to have in this project. Okay, but I'm going to use their link here as a URL or as a href just to give some credit. And let's actually make this open in a new tab. Okay, so let's give it a target of _ blank. Okay, so that this opens in a new tab. Let's do the same here. Okay, so those are the two links. And for the image, let's import our first image. We are going to have 6 portfolio items here, so we are going to import all the images here. Let's just call the first one img1, and we are going to go into our assets and get the portfolio 1.jpg. okay, let's see, let's check that real quick. So we have portfolio 1 to portfolio 6. Okay, so these are the images we are going to use. All right, so we are getting the first one. Let's just duplicate this 5 times and change the numbers. Okay, so this is going to be portfolio 2, this is going to be 3, I'm going to have the 4th one, 5th, and the last one. Okay, which is the 6th one. Now let me delete this one, and we can use that image right here. Okay, so our img tag, and the source is going to be the first one here. The alt, let's just leave that empty for now, but we are going to populate, okay, with the title of the project. Okay, all right, and I have an error here. Let's check our projects. What is wrong? Portfolio 5. Oh, there's a png. Okay, that is a png, so let's just correct that. .png. All right, so now we don't have that error. Okay, so I'm actually going to have an array of 6 portfolio objects. Okay, portfolio item objects that we are going to map through. Okay, but before that, let's just have some hard coded markup here or JSX here, just so we can style it. Okay, so we're going to come back to the JSX and then actually loop through the array that I'll be pasting in here. Okay, so let's see what we have first. All right, so not too bad, just to make sure it should be 6. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's actually 7, so I'm going to remove the last one. Save, and we should have 6 portfolio items. Okay, so let's go into the CSS, style this, and then we'll come back to generate this dynamically. Okay, so let's go into the CSS. I'm going to get the portfolio container, and I'm going to display that grade. The grade template columns here is going to be repeat 3 times 1fr. Okay, let me give them a gap, or a gap between them is going to be 2.5 rem. Let's see, and we have this. Now let's get the portfolio items. Okay, so portfolio underscore items, that is the article with the class of portfolio items. Let's give them a background of color BG variant, a padding of 1.3 rem, a border radius of 2 rem, a border of 1 pixel solid, and it is going to be transparent for now, but we are going to have a hover effect, so let's give it that transition variable. And now for the hover, this should be portfolio item. Okay, so on hover, let's change the border color to color primary variant. The background is going to be transparent. Okay, so that is on hover. Let's see, and we have this. Right, now let me actually make this to 1.2. Now let me style the image. Okay, so I'm going to that we give that a class of portfolio item image. Let's give that a border radius of 1.5 rem and an overflow of heading. All right, now let's get the title, the h3, so portfolio item, and then the h3 inside of it. Let's give that a margin of 1.2 rem for the top, 0 for the left and right, and then 2 rem for the bottom. Okay, so let's check that. Portfolio item, and then the h3. Why is that not working? Oh, this should be rem. All right, so we have that. All right, so now let's target the call to action buttons. Okay, so let's give them, or let's have some space between them. Portfolio item, and then the CTA. I think we gave that a class of CTA. Let's check. Oh, you know what? Let me just reverse this real quick, and I'm going to correct this. Okay, so these two should be inside a div with a class of portfolio item CTA. Okay, so that is going to wrap around them. Now I'm just going to copy the article tag and duplicate it five times. I hope that is 5. Okay, let's check, and we have 6. Okay, exactly what we want. Let's come back here, and here I'm going to display them flex and give a gap between them. A gap of 1 rem should be good. A margin bottom of 1 point, or let's just do 1 rem. Save, and we have this. Okay, not bad. All right, now this doesn't look good on tablets and then mobile phones, so we are going to write the media query real quick. Okay, so let's get back here. Going to paste that and remove this. All right, so we are going to start with the tablets as usual. And on tablets, I want to get the portfolio container and change the grid templates columns. And I'm going to change the grid templates columns to 1FR, 1FR. Okay. So 50 on the left, 50 on the right. The gap is also going to be reduced to 1.2 rem. And that is all for the tablets. Now let's come down here to the small devices or on mobile phones. We're going to get the portfolio container here again, and then the grid templates columns here is going to be 1FR. And one more time, you're going to reduce the gap. Okay. So this is how it's going to look on mobile. All right, let's actually check that on a real device. Let's see on tablets. Okay, so the styling for this portfolio, ignore this error. Okay, the styling for this portfolio is all done. Now, as I said, we are going to generate our portfolio items dynamically using the array map function. So right here, I'm just going to have only one portfolio item, and I'm going to paste in an array of some portfolio objects that I have here. Okay. All right. So right here we have our data array with 6 objects, and each object has an ID. Okay, which is going to be the unique key for our map. We are going to map through these, so we are going to have a unique key. We should have a unique key. We have the image that we are going to use. So the first one is going to have the img1 that we've imported here. The second is going to have the img2. The third is going to have img3 and on. Okay, so notice the IDs are different as well for each of them. We have the title, and I got that from this page. Okay, so I just click on the image that I'm going to use, and then I use the title they have here. Okay, and once again, I'm giving credit to this person here on Dribble for the amazing profile. Okay, so let's go back, and we have the GitHub. Okay, so here I'm just doing github.com. Okay, but you should have your real GitHub project link here, and also the live demo is going to link to the picture that I'm going to use here. Okay, all right, so that is all for this array. So here we are going to, let me just copy this, let me cut actually. Let's enter JavaScript mode, and we are going to map through the data array. Okay, and let's destructure the ID, the image, the title, the GitHub, that is the GitHub link, and then the demo link as well. Okay, let's return the article. Okay, the article tag. All right, so here the image here, the img here hard coded is going to come from this. It's going to be this. Okay, so that is going to be that. And as I said, each article tag here should have a unique ID. Okay, so a unique key of the ID that we have. Okay, these IDs are different, so that is going to make it unique. Each of them is going to be unique there. The alt is going to be the title. The title here is going to be the title as well. The link here to the GitHub is going to come from the array, so that's going to be the GitHub link. And what else? And the live demo is going to go to the live demo link. Okay, so demo. All right, so let's save and then see what we have. And we have our dynamically generated portfolio items. Okay. All right, so let's see how this looks on real devices. And this is how our website is going to look, or this is how the portfolio section is going to look on tablets. Let's see on mobile phones. And this is how it's going to look on mobile phones. So you can click to get to the GitHub or the live demo, and they are both going to open in a new tab. Okay, let's close this, and now let's move to the next component, which is going to be the testimonial section. Okay, let's quickly move to that. I'm going to close this up and move into the testimonial component. Let's have our age 5, our age 2, and then we are going to have our container class. Okay, all right, and inside of it we are going to have our individual testimonials, and that is going to be in this article tag with a class of testimonial. Okay, singular. All right, and in here we are going to have first our client image, and that is going to be a div with a class of client avatar, and that is going to be an image, right? So I'm going to import let's say from, let's go back into our assets and grab, let's see, so we have this, that is avatar1.png or jpg. Okay, so avatar1.jpg, that is the first one. I'm going to duplicate that 3 times and make the changes real quick. There's going to be 2. We're going to have the 3. Come on. And then the 4. Okay, so we are only going to have 4 images that we are going to use. So the source here, enter JavaScript mode, and then avt, come on, avtr1. The source here, I'm going to just say for now. Okay, let's see if we have something in here, and we have it. All right, now below that we are going to have the name, and that is just going to be an age 5. Let's just hard code this for now, and below that we are going to have the review. Okay, the client's review. Let's give that a class of client review, and let's actually give this a class as well. Okay, so client name. All right, so we have those. Now let's put something in a review. Let's just do lorem 30 for now. We are also going to generate this dynamically. Okay, so I'm going to have an array of some testimonial objects that we are going to look through. Okay, but before that, let's just see what we have, and then I am going to duplicate this 3 times, just so we can style it. Okay, so we are going to go ahead into the CSS, give this some styling, and then we will come back to generate this whole thing dynamically. Okay, let's get the container wrapper. Okay, so testimonials container, we are going to change the width. I'm being very specific here. The width here is going to be 40%. Let's actually put this side by side so that we see what's going on. Okay, so the width here is going to be 40%. All right, so below that we are going to get the avatar. Okay, we give that a class of client avatar. The width is going to be 4 rem, and let's set the aspect ratio to 1:1, so the width is always going to be the same as the height. Let's set overflow to heading. Save. No, I think we gave that a class. Let's see the image. Yeah, we give that a class of client avatar. So what is happening? Let me remove that. All right. Oh, I think we made a big mistake. Everything is inside the client's avatar. Okay, so I'm going to remove that. That shouldn't be the case. Let me actually revert back to this. Remove it. Before we duplicate it. Okay, so I'm going to copy the article tag again, duplicate it 3 times. All right, so that's what we want. So here I can do overflow heading, and we will still have our text. Okay, which is what I want. Now the border radius here is going to be 50% to make it a circle. I'm going to set the margin to 0 auto and then 1 rem. Let's give it a border of 0.4 rem solid, and let's have the color primary variant. This should be variants. Save, and we have that. Okay, now let's target the individual testimonials, and we give that a class of testimonial. Okay, singular. Now the background is going to be the primary variant. Let's text align to text align to the center, padding of 2 rem, a border radius of 2 rem, and user select of none. Okay, we shouldn't be able to select this. That is why I'm setting them to none. Okay, oh, this should actually be BG variant. Okay, not primary variant. This should be BG variant. Okay, so we have that. Now let's move on to the review. Okay, this text that we have here, let's get that. So we gave that a class of client review, so we are going to change the color for that to be color light. The font weight is going to be 300. I think that is 300 already. Okay, but let's just keep that. Let's display block. Let me check whether it's really okay. So it wasn't 300, but now it's 300. Okay, now the width here is going to be 80%, and the margin is going to be 0.8 rem for the top, auto for the left and right, and then 0 for the bottom. Save, and that's what we have. Great. Now I'm going to have some media queries here. Okay, before we actually move on to making it a slide, I'm going to have the media queries. So let me just copy this, paste it here, and remove this. All right, so let's have a very simple media query here. So on tablets, I want to get the container, and then the width here is going to be 60% on tablets. Okay, and we are going to change the width here as well on mobile, and that is going to be the variable container width SM. All right, now on mobile, we are going to change the width of the client review as well. So client review, that is going to have a width of the container width SM. Okay, save, and we have this. Right, this doesn't look great, but we are going to use SwiperJS to make it a slide, just like we have in the finished projects. Okay, to make it this slide. So but even before that, let's generate this dynamically. Okay, let's generate this dynamically. As I said, I have an array of some testimonial objects that I'm going to use here, so I'm just going to copy them and then paste it in. Okay, so I have this data array with these testimonial objects that I have. Okay, so we have the avatar, which is going to be the image, and we've imported all the 4 images that we are going to use here. We have the name. The first is Tina Snow. We have the second one here, which is Shatawale. We have the reviews as well for each of the objects that we have here. Okay, so here I'm just going to remove the hard-coded reviews. So let me remove this article tag. I'm going to cut it, and we are going to enter JavaScript mode and map through this. Okay, so using the array map method, we are going to first the structure, or the we are going to have the avatar, the name, review, and we don't have a unique key here, so let's use index. Okay, let's have an index here, and now we are going to return the article tag. All right, so in here we should have a unique key. So key is going to be the index. Let's see, this is going to be the avatar, that is the image, or we should just remove it. Okay, the name here is going to be generated dynamically, so we are going to have the name, and lastly we are going to have the review. Okay, and that is going to come from here. Okay, so we are going to have this, which is this review. All right, so let's save and see. We have oh, I made a terrible mistake here. I guess it should be the third one here, and then the fourth one. Save, and we have them. Okay, now the actual review is the same for all of the objects. As you can see here, they are the same thing. If I should change this to, let's say, then we are going to have some kind of dynamic, okay, data here. Okay, but let's just keep it real here. So you can have your real clients testimonials here. Okay, and they're going to be generated dynamically. All right, so now that we've done that, let's actually make the slides. Okay, so for that we are going to use, let me close this, we are going to use SwiperJS. So let's go to swiperjs.com, and here we are going to click on React. I'm not really going to go in depth with SwiperJS. I'm just going to follow to make sure our project is complete. But Swiper, you can actually go to the demo and then see the various swipes or the slides that they have. Okay, so this is the first example. We have these ones as well. We have these. That's the pagination, which is what we are going to use. Okay, but we are going to use the React, so you can actually click the React here and then see it, but we've already clicked this. Okay, so that is what we are going to do here. So let me close the demos, and here first we have to actually install SwiperJS in our project. Okay, so I'm going to do npm install Swiper, and this is going to take a while. So let's just relax and make this installation finish. All right, so SwiperJS is installed. Okay, so as you can see here, you first have to install it, and that's what we just did. So let's scroll down, and I'm going to grab these. Okay, I'm going to grab all these, everything from here, copy, and then paste it in here. Okay, we are going to import that in our project. So I'm going to paste, and then I'm going to use the pagination. Okay, so I'm going to remove this navigation and then the scroll bar. I don't need that. And here also I'm going to remove the navigation and the scroll bar. I just need the pagination. Okay, now let me go back, and as you can see here, each slide should have this component tag. Okay, in our case, that is going to be the article with a class of testimonial. Okay, so this should be the swiper slide. Okay, so I'm just going to replace that with the swiper slide, and the parent of this should be the swiper. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this, and the parent of this article or this swiper slide here is going to be this. Okay, so that is going to be the swiper. Let me replace that with this. Save. Let's see our project, and we have this already. Okay, now let me go back and copy this. Let me copy this, go back to the project, and that is going to be here. Okay, inside of this, let me just paste it. And as I said, I don't need a navigation, I don't need a scroll bar as well. I'm actually going to remove all of this. Okay, I don't need the console log and all that, but the slide per view here is only going to be 1, and the space between is going to be 40 pixels. Okay, I'm going to make that 40 pixels. Save. Actually, let me just remove this navigation and all that. I don't need them, I only need the pagination, and that is what I'm actually importing from here. Okay, so this is our testimonials. Now if you don't have this pagination, okay, if you don't have that, then you may want to import navigation. Okay, navigation and just what we copied here, you may want to just leave that in. Okay, you may want to just leave this. Okay, but mine is working, so I'm just going to remove those. I just need the pagination. Okay, so one thing I want to do is, this is on top of this. Okay, I want this to be down here. So let's go back into the CSS, and here I'm going to give it a padding of 4rem, a padding bottom of 4rem. Okay, that is the container class. I'm going to give that a padding bottom of 4rem. Let's see, and we have that. Okay, now notice this blue doesn't really correspond to the primary color that we have, and so we are going to change that as well. So let me come down here, and we can actually just inspect this. So I can click it and inspect this to see the class. So let me just copy this class, and this is what we are going to target. So swiper pagination bullet, and then actually let me get the clickable, and also the swiper pagination bullet. Okay, not the active, the bullet. Let's give that a background of our primary background, our primary colors. So let's save, and we should have our primary color here. Okay, Now let's see how this actually looks on tablets and then mobile phones. So this is how it's going to look on tablets. Let's see how it is going to look on mobile phones as well. And there's it. Okay, we have our media queries here already, and that is why it is that responsive. All right, so that's all for this testimonial section or this testimonial component. I'm just going to close that up, and we are going to move on to the next component, which is going to be the contact. Okay, so let's head into the contact component. All right, so let me show you something real quick. In the finished project, we have this left side, which is going to be the contact options. Okay, and then we have the form on the right. Okay, so each of these is going to be contact option, which is singular. And so let me actually close the SwiperJS since we are done with it. And so that's how we are going to structure this. But first, let's have our age 5. That's going to say get in touch. And our age 2. Okay. All right. So below that, we are going to have our container class and our contact container class as well. And that is going to be specific to this contact section or this contact component. And in here, as I said, we are going to have the contact options. Okay, that's going to be on the left, and on the right we are going to have the form. So in here we are going to have an article tag with a class of contact option singular, and for each contact option we are going to have the icon, this h4 and h5, and then a link. Okay, that's going to be for each of these. So first, you know what, let's ignore the icon for now, and then let's have the h4. The first one is going to be email. We are going to have an h5, and that is going to have our email. Okay, so that's my email. Below that, we are going to have a link, an anchor tag, and the href for this is going to be mail to colon and then the email. Okay, our email. Okay, so whenever someone clicks on this link, your email is automatically going to be populated. Okay, and this is just going to say send a message, and I should have the icon. So let's go back to the React icons library here, and this is going to be email. Let's use this. I'm going to use that one, so let me just import that. From the React icons library, and this MD. Okay, and I'm going to use that down here, self-closing tag. Let's save and see what we have in the project, and we have this. Okay, so that is one contact option. We are going to duplicate that twice. The second one is going to be messenger. Okay, so this is going to say messenger, Facebook Messenger. Just going to do Igato tutorials. For the URL here, we are going to do https m.me/your profile. Okay, so let me go to Facebook and then show you something real quick. I actually don't use Facebook that much. I barely go there, but just for this tutorial, I'm going to show you something. All right, so on your profile, okay, on your Facebook profile, you should have your unique subdomain, okay, or sublink or whatever it's called. You just copy that, come back to the project, and then we are going to paste that in. Okay, so this URL and then slash your profile ID or whatever it is. Okay, let me close this. That is going to be Messenger. That is Facebook Messenger. This is what I used, so I'm just going to copy that. come up here, duplicate this, replace that, and this is going to be RI. All right, let me actually get the other icon as well, and that is going to be WhatsApp, and this is what I used. So I'm just going to copy that, come back, duplicate this, now let's come down here. Here we are going to have WhatsApp. Let's just paste the icon we just copied. This should be the messenger, so I'm just going to copy this and then replace that. And here you can have your WhatsApp number, okay? But in our case, we don't want people to save our number before they message us, okay? So here we are only going to have a link, and by clicking on this link, WhatsApp on their phone or on their device is going to be loaded, okay? So it's going to open our number on WhatsApp, okay? If they have WhatsApp installed on their phone, that is going to be loaded, or that is going to be launched, and then they can message us directly. Let me just stop talking and then show you what I mean. Okay, so the link we are going to use here is HTTPS. I'm going to use the WhatsApp API link .whatsapp.com, and then we are going to send a message to this phone number. Okay, so here we are going to put in our phone number, and I'm going to blur this out. Okay, you should have your number here. Okay, you should put your number here, including the country code, okay, and maybe the state code depending on where you're from, and that is all. Okay, so that is all you have to do here. So now let's save and let's test these three options out. Okay, so let's go to our project, and for the email, I'm just going to click the link, and it is going to open my mail, and I have my email populated here. Okay, so anyone coming to your website can just click that, and your email will be populated here. So they can just go ahead and then type in their message. Okay, they don't have to copy your email before they actually open their Gmail to type anything. Okay, they can just click it, and it is going to just populate everything. Now for the messenger, actually, you know what, let's go back and then make these open in a new tab. Okay, so let's give that the target of underscore blank. Let's do same for the other two. Now let's try the messenger again. So I'm going to click messenger, and they can type in a direct message here. So that's how that works. Let's close this. And for the WhatsApp, I have WhatsApp installed on this laptop. Okay, so I can just click it. All right, so I have WhatsApp on my laptop. That is why it's going to launch WhatsApp. So anyone visiting your website, clicking that is going to have their WhatsApp launched, and they are going to message you directly on WhatsApp. Okay, they don't have to save your number before they message you. So right here, they can just enter a message and then send that. And now let's have the form. Okay, we are going to have a form, which is going to be another option, and they can message you through that form as well, and you are going to receive that in your email. Okay, so let's have the markup or the JSX for the form. Now this is going to be the only form on our page, so I'm not going to bother to give it any class. So let's have an input, and the name of this is going to be name. So I'm going to give this a placeholder of your full name, and this should be required so that people don't send empty fields. Okay, so that's just some front end or client side validation there. Let's have an input of email, and this should have a name of email or any name that you want to give it, and a placeholder of your email. This should be required as well. The last one is going to be a text area, and this is going to have a text area, our message. So actually the row here is going to be, let me make that 7. I'm not going to need the columns and the ID, but I'm going to need a placeholder, your message, and I'm going to make this required as well. All right, so that is the text area. Let's save and see what we have. Now let's have a button with a type of submit, and this is going to say send message. Let's actually give it a class of btn and then btn primary. All right, so that is all. Now let's head to the css and give our contact component some styling. All right, so right here I'm going to get the container and then the contact container. I'm being specific here because I'm going to resize the width to 58%. Let's display this grid, and the grid templates columns here is going to be 30% for the left and then 58 for the right. Okay, the remainder is going to be for the gap, that is going to be 12 rem. Let's save, and we have that. Now let's move on to the contact options. Okay, so contact underscore options. Let's display that to be flex. The flex direction is going to be column, and give it a gap of 1.2 rem. Save. Let's target each contact option. Okay, that is singular. Let's give them a background, color variant, color bg variant, a pattern of 1.2 rem, a border radius of 1.2 rem as well. Let's text align everything to the center, and give it a border of 1 pixel solid, and here is going to be transparent for now, but on hover it is going to change color. Okay, so let's have a transition here, that is the variable transition. So let's see what we have here. So that is it. We are going to have a hover effect. Background is going to be transparent, and the border color here is going to change. Okay, so that is going to be the variable color primary variant. So we have a cool hover effect. Now let's get the icon. Okay, so I think we gave that a class. Did we gave that a class of, no we did not. Okay, so here each icon is going to have a class of contact option icon. Let me copy and then paste for the 2 other icons. Save, come back here, and this is going to be what we are going to style. Okay, so here I'm going to change the font size. I'm going to increase that to 1.5 rem and give it a margin of, let me do margin bottom of 0.5 rem. Okay, save, and we have this. All right, now I'm going to target the anchor tags, that is contact option, and then the anchor tags inside of it. Give it a margin top of 0.7 rem. I'm going to display inline block, and font size, give it a font size of 0.8 rem. Save, and that is all for this contact options section. Okay, now let's target the form. So let me actually leave a comment. So let's get our form and display that to be flex. Flex direction is going to be column, and give it a gap of 1.2 rem. Okay, and we have that. Now I'm going to get the input and then the text area. Okay, so the rate for that is going to be 100%. Give it a margin of 1.5 rem, a border radius of 0.5 rem, a background. Let's make that transparent. Okay, a border of 2 pixels solid, and color, let's do the primary variant. I'm going to set the resize for the text area to be none, so that we can do this. Okay, so let me save, and now that's not possible. All right, let me refresh this. Okay, now let me show you real quick. Okay, so the text here is not really visible, the contrast is not clear, so I'm going to make the text white. Save, and we have that. Okay, so now we can type. Great. Now let's make this responsive. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this and then copy and paste the media queries. Okay, so let me remove this, make sure I'm closing this, and in here on tablets, let's see what is happening. On tablets, I want to get the container, so contact container, and the grid template columns here is going to be 1FR. Okay, let's make sure. Okay, so it's going to be 1FR, and the gap is going to be 2 rem. Okay, now on mobile, let me just copy this. On mobile, I want to have the rate set to, come on, let me just, this already 1FR, so let me remove that. And here the width is going to be set to the variable. Okay, so the container rate sm, and that is going to be for mobile. So let's shrink it to mobile, and we have it. Okay, let's actually see how it's going to look on a real device. Okay, so that's how it is going to look on mobile. Let's check it on tablets, and this is how it's going to look. And that is all for the styling. Okay, now let's go ahead and then use email.js to send mails from this contact form. Okay, so for that, we are going to go to email.js.com. You may want to sign up, but I have an account, so I'm going to sign in. And you may have a default service here. Okay, but you can even delete that if you want. We are going to create a new service. Actually, let me just delete this. Okay, the old one, I'm going to delete that. So we are going to create a new service, and the service we are going to use is Gmail. So we can just leave it like that. You can name it anything you want, but let's just keep that. And then let's connect the email that we want to receive the messages in. Okay, so we are going to connect the email. Okay, so you select the email you want to connect. Okay, and then we can proceed to create the service. All right, so our service is created. Now we want to create an email template. Okay, so let's create, actually, you know what, let me go back, and I'm going to delete the old template, and here I'm going to create a new template. Okay, let me remove everything in here. And the subject, okay, the subject here, you can just say, okay, you can just do that since we don't have any field for subject. Okay, or if you have a field for subject, then you can do 3 curly braces and then the name you gave to that field. Okay, so this would correspond to the name you gave to the field, the subject field that you created. But we don't have a subject field, so that is why we are going to keep this the way it is. Okay, we are going to make it this way so that we know this message is coming from our portfolio website. Okay, so here, how do you want to receive the message? Okay, so first we want the name of the person. Okay, and this should correspond to the name you give to that field. So from the source code, let's see, in the JSX, remember this name. Okay, so the name for this first field is going to be name. That of the second field is going to be email. The third one is going to be message. Okay, so that is what we are using here. Okay, the next one, we are going to have our email, or the email of the sender, and then the message itself, the message. So now we can save this template and test this out. Okay, so let me enter the name here. Let me enter a random name. That's the email. And we can hit send. Okay, and the message has been sent since we get a 200 here. Okay, so let's check our email. Let me just remove these. Okay, so this is the message we just received. This is the name, the email, and then the message itself. Okay, now let me close this up. Now to link this template to our website or our form on the website, let's open a new tab and then search React email.js. Okay, let's click this, and we first have to install email.js. Okay, so here, so npm install email.js-com -save. Okay, we are going to install that as a dependency. All right, and the installation is done. So let's go back, and here I'm just going to copy this and then paste that here, and make sure I'm importing email.js from email.js-com. Okay, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to copy this, and then paste what I just copied. Save. All right, so we were importing React twice. That is why that error was there. I'm actually going to remove this action, and the ref is going to be equal to the form. Okay, that is equal to this use ref. Okay, and on submit, we are going to call this function that we just created or we just pasted. So on submit of this form, we want to call that function. Okay, All right, so now we have to link our template and the service that we just created, okay, and our user ID as well. So let's go back to the email.js, and here that is the service ID or the service key that we are going to link. So I'm just going to copy that and replace that with this, paste. Now let's copy the template that we created as well. There's the ID that we are going to use, okay. So I'm going to copy that and replace that with this, and our user ID as well, okay. So let's copy our user ID, and that is here in the integration and in the API. Oh, it is even here, and then paste that in here, okay. All right, so now let's test this out, okay. So let's go to, let me refresh this, and then let's send a message, okay. This from jdo at gmail.com. Send. And now let's check our email. So I'm going to check my email, and I have it, okay. So I have a message from Jendo right here. All right, so that is done. Actually, you know what, I want this to reset, okay, when we click on this button, okay. So here I'm going to do e.target.reset, okay. Save. Let's try that again. Send this message, and the fields are cleared, okay. Let's refresh our email, and we have a new message, the same message from Jendo. All right, so that is all for the contact components, okay, or the contact section. That is all for the contact component. And now we have one more component to go, and that is the footer, okay. So let's go into our code. Let me close these up, and let's go into our footer components. Now let me actually change this to the footer tag, okay. That's an HTML5 semantic tag, okay. So first we are going to have a link, and this is going to be my logo, okay, and that's just going to take us to the top of the page. Let me actually give this a class of footer logo, and below that we are going to have some permalinks, okay. So let's actually give this a class of permalinks. So the LIs are going to have anchor tags. The first one is going to go to the top of the page, and let's duplicate this a few times, okay. The second one is going to go to the about. So we are basically going to have all the components or all the sections is going to go to the about. We are going to have experience, services, portfolio, testimonials. Okay, let's have the contacts as well, okay. So contacts. Now below this we are going to have some socials as well here in the footer. So let's put it inside a div, and we are going to have the first one to go to Facebook, okay. So we are going to have an icon inside of it, but for now let's just duplicate it. And the second one is going to go to Instagram. The third is going to go to Twitter. Now let's get our icons. So we are going to have Facebook, okay. I'm going to use that one. I'm going to import that from the React icons library. We are going to have Instagram. going to use this. Okay, and down here, actually let me have it. Okay, so let me paste that as a self closing tag. Let me do that for the Facebook as well. And lastly, we are going to have Twitter. Okay, so let's search Twitter. I'm going to use this. Save. Let's check what we have. And we have this. Okay, so we have all three icons as well. Now I want to have, that's below the footer social, so I want to have a copyright. Okay, so I'm going to give that a class of footer copyright, and this is going to be inside a small tag. So let's have the copyright sign. And then save. Okay, so that's all for the footer JSX. So let's go into the CSS and then give this some styling. Now I'm going to minimize this and put this, let's see, let's just keep it like that, but I'm going to minimize the VSCode. Right, so let me get a footer tag. I'm going to give that a background of color primary. Let's give it a padding of 3 rem for the top and bottom, and then 0 for the left and right. I'm going to text align everything to the center and give it a font size of 0.9 rem. Now I'm going to give it a margin top of 7 rem, and we have this. Anchor tags, okay, the links, as you can see, we have nothing here. Okay, nothing is showing. That is because they have the same color. Okay, it's a light blue text on a light blue background. So let's change the color for the links to color BG. So we have that. Now let's get the logo. Okay, so footer logo, I'm going to make the font size bigger, so 2 rem should be good. Font weight is going to be 500. I'm going to give it a margin bottom of 2 rem, and I'm going to display its block. Let me actually make that inline block. Now I'm going to get the permalinks. Okay, that is the UL, and display that gray flex. I'm going to set the flex wrap to wrap, justify content to center. Let's give it a gap of 2 rems and a margin of 0 auto. You know what, let me give it a bottom margin of 3 rem. Now let's get the footer socials. Okay, we have the icons here, but it's below or under this floating nav. Okay, so let's get the header footer socials and display that flex. I'm going to justify content to the center, give a gap between them, a gap of 1 rem, and a margin bottom of 4 rem. Okay, now I'm going to get the links. Okay, so each of these are actually inside a link or an anchor tag. So footer socials and then the link. Let's give that a background of the color BG, and the text color or the icons color in this case is going to be white. Let's give them a padding of 0.8 rem and border radius of 0.7 rem. The display here is going to be flex and border of 1 pixel solid transparent. Okay, so now I'm going to have a hover effect. So footer socials A, and then the hover. On hover, the background is going to be transparent, and then the color, that's the text color, is going to be color BG, and we are going to have a color change for the border color. So border color is going to be color BG as well. Now let's get the footer copyright. Okay, let's get a copyright. So footer copyright, and I'm going to give that a margin bottom of 4 and a color, a text color of color BG. Okay, so that is our copyright. Now you're going to have a very simple, let's actually see how this looks on tablets. So this actually looks good on tablets, but it is not going to look great on mobile phones for now. So let's have a media query for mobile phones. So I'm just going to copy this, come in here and then paste it. Let me minimize that. Okay, so this is going to be the media queries on mobile phones. Now I'm going to get the permalinks. Let me make this smaller. I'm going to get the permalinks, and the flex direction on mobile is going to be column. Okay, and the gap between them is going to be 1.5 rem. All right, so we have that. Now let's get the footer socials as well, and the margin bottom is going to be 2.6 rem. Okay, so now this actually looks good on tablets, on mobile, sorry. All right, so we are done with this whole website. Okay, we are done with the whole project. Okay, now one thing I want to change, okay, one small thing I want to change is the color. Okay, the color for this nav, the floating nav. So for that, let's see, let's go into the floating nav. So that is the nav. Where is it? Okay, let's go to the CSS, and I want to change the active BG. Okay, so the active one is going to have a background of the primary. All right, and then the color should be BG, the color BG. Okay, should be black so that we have some contrast. All right, now we are done with everything, so let's proceed to deploying this on the internet. Okay, so let's deploy this on the internet. So let's go back to the code, and then right, first let's go into our package.json. Okay, and make sure to add home page, and the home page is going to be our domain. So http, and then the domain we claimed. Okay, so let's make sure this is added to our package.json file and then saved before we run npm run build. Okay, so after saving that, we can now go ahead and then do npm run build. All right, now our website or our app is now ready to be deployed to the server. Okay, now this is the build folder. Okay, and this is what we are going to upload to the server. But before that, we have to compress this. So I'm going to compress this to a zip file, and this zip file is what we are going to upload. Okay, so let's go to our Hostinger H panel and then log in. I'm going to manage. I'm going to click manage, and I'm going to click on file manager. Okay, now let's select the domain, and in here you should have a public underscore HTML folder. Okay, if you don't have it, we can just create it. Okay, and inside this public HTML is where we are going to upload the zip file. Okay, so let's upload that file. I'm just going to drag and drop that and upload. Okay, now I'm going to extract this file. I'm going to extract that. The extraction is done. Now I can delete the zip file. Okay, I don't need it anymore. Let's go into the build folder and move these files to the public HTML. Okay, so I'm going to move these files to the public HTML. Okay, so I'm going to select that and then move them in. Now let's go into the public HTML and delete the folder. Okay, this build folder has nothing in it anymore, so we are going to delete that. So our file structure here, or our folder structure here, should be exactly like in the build that we have in our project on our system. Okay, it should be the exact same thing. Okay, so now our website is deployed. Okay, our files are uploaded. Now let's check out the website. Let's visit the domain, and we should have our website. So everything is working perfectly. All right, the testimonial section is working great. And you would have to log in. Anyone visiting should log in before they can actually message you, obviously. And the email, you can just go ahead and then type in our body. All right, let's try the actual message as well. That's the form. Let's send. Now I'm going to check my email here in the other browser. Okay, so I have it. All right, and I'm using Firefox here. Okay, I'm using Firefox just for you to know that this looks good on different browsers. Now let's try the floating nav, and everything looks great. Okay, all right, so that is all for this project. Thanks very much for watching to the end, and I'll see you at the next one.